right, Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation here. Good early Monday evening, depends on where you are in the world, right? If it's evening, afternoon, or whatever. All right, so this is going to be my, I shouldn't say last, because I do my daily updates on the 4 funds that I track, and I'm going to do all the YieldMax funds because I'm very much a YieldMax lover, and that I believe their methodology, their option strategy is superior to most of the other. Although I'm sure there'll be some replication, and I know Jay with Zega is involved in some of the Defiance funds, but we'll see. Okay. I'll certainly expand out and cover more things going forward. Let's jump in here and get right to what I want to talk about, right? And it's what you guys care about. It's what people tell me all the time. So let's take, whoops, I'm moving my OBS window and I just want to go to the spreadsheet. There we go. Now I can move around a little bit more. So what I've done is I have a spreadsheet tracking all of the YieldMax funds, right? Including the funds of funds down at the bottom. But as most people know, those pay at a different time, and people love that. They love that idea that they can collect money at this part of the month, right? Typically mid-month, and then more like the beginning of the month. So we declare on June 5 on Wednesday, in case anybody doesn't know that. Most everybody does. And this month they're paying on the 7th, right? So 5 and 7 are your key dates. Early in the morning, I'll do a video on that. And this is my sort of my last video on the updates, like I said, other than the 4 that I cover emphatically. So you could argue that I'm not as well versed in these others, but I certainly download most every day their holdings and even some of their interdays. I'm just not doing the video volume because I find that I'm trying to build my channel and I want to cover more things, right? And for my subscribers, you're going to see not only am I covering my funds at a detailed level, I'm going to help you when you want to hedge, to trade, to sell options against, for, you know, because look over here on the right. Not only am I going into the funds, I'm kind of giving you a snippet of my views on things. Now, occasionally when I do this, I lose a subscriber or two. No problem. You don't have eye-to-eye view with me. I don't expect you to. And I love differing opinions, right? So I'll say that I think we're very close, okay, to topping in the overall general markets. And topping can be a process. It can be a month or 2 period. But we may have seen the highs in the FOMO, in the Dow, and in the NASDAQ, mostly for the year. The old saying, you know, buy in May and go, or sell in May and go away. And we'll see. I think we're particularly dangerous in the September, late August, September timeframe. In September, I'm not expecting a crash, but September's always been a crash month, right? There's going to be a pullback. September has had some of the worst and had many of the pullbacks. I'm not even saying that's going to happen because my short-term views are much better than my medium and longer term. But I'll give you comments in here. And I know you just want to know what they're going to pay, so I'm going to jump in. It's just some of my expertise and some of my background. So I share that with you. Okay, let's jump in here. And I'm really only giving you stats. Some people, they give you 1 million stats. I think if you have too many stats, it serves to confuse you, right? So what we want to know is, and I want you to know that I have the history, right? A lot of these funds haven't been paying that long, right? They really go back to September, right? Or I'm sorry, that's not true. The longest ones, and you guys know that, TSLY is probably one of the most loved and most hated. And again, I always tell the TSLY haters that say YieldMax is a scam and yada, yada, yada. YieldMax is not a scam. YieldMax is not returning your capital and only distributing your capital back and all stocks are going to go to zero. It's just BS. You know, how anybody can say that with a straight face shows that they don't really understand the markets, right? And the markets can be brutal, right? Smart money moves to smart money. Typically, retail is buying at the top. That's why I lose some subscribers when I say we're in the topping process. They don't want to hear it. They want to believe that FOMO is on. Look at GameStop today. Opened at 40. Where did it close? At 28. It just signifies that when you get that kind of FOMO in the market, it's just a sign that times are dangerous, right? And I'm not out Chicken Little. We're not crashing. It's not a 29 scenario. I mean, the U.S. got massive debt and all that. But all right, I promise, I'm gonna jump in here. But what I wanted to say, one final thing, like on a TSLY, and this is how I treat YieldMax, and I treat any investment. I try to look at charts because charts speak to you when you learn to read their language. So first off, and I'm not even going to pull it up and show you, but go look at a 5-year chart of TSLY, right? Or Tesla, the underlying. You had a 40x run, okay? Phenomenal, right? A blow off top almost at that time. So then it starts in a downtrend, right? Well, nothing goes straight down. If you're familiar with Fibonacci and you're familiar with ABC movements, right? So what is a counter-cyclical? What's a downtrend look like? A is a down move. B bounces, maybe retraces 50% of the down move. And then C typically matches A or goes lower, right? And that's just a pattern. And when you have those, it's brutal. But everybody's looking in the rear view mirror. You got a high IV stock, it's paying, yada, 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 right? But in reality, Tesla is in a bear market. So everybody's hating on YieldMax. They got an excellent product. It just was a timing thing, right? ARK, all right. And then I'm done, just because they're right in front of me. So ARK, with Cathie Wood, love Cathie Wood. I think she is a visionary. She sees things way early. Been there, done that myself in tech, right? Because you're involved in tech, you think you know which technology is going to go to the forefront, but you don't always know the internal workings. What's their funding? What's their aggressiveness? You know, are they overspending? Do they not have a good comp plan for their sales force? What's their marketing spend like? You know, what's the atmosphere? There's so many things that make up a company, their ability to earn, even though they may have a good technology. We've all seen it. So ARK, while they are innovative and they're looking, you know, and they're seeing things that are going to change our lives, like AI. If you're talking AI 5 years ago, you're really too early, right? If you're talking AI right now, it's not that you're late, it's just the FOMO is all built in. So there's more likelihood that we decline for a while and figure out which earners are going to be there. You know, and I'll talk more about a commodity cycle and hard assets over my videos, and I explain this to some of my long-term viewers. And typically industry veterans or people that have lived their life, you know, 50s, 60s, you have a lot more wisdom about things. You've seen it. Those of us that have lived, you know, 6 or 7 decades, we've seen oil embargoes. We've seen lines wrapped around the street at the gas station. You know, we've lived through things that people may think, oh, no, that would never happen, right? Oh, no, they're never going to have a bank bail-in. No, they're never going to do this, you know. Never, never, never until it happens. Okay, so here I am. I ran it. I'm into it. So let's take TSLY. So I put these things out here to help us. I see 57 cents, okay? That's you know, they paid an average of $1.34 over their period of 17 payments, right? But if you look at where they're trending, 80, 80, 69, they didn't particularly have a good, if you look at some of the people that cover TSLY. So that's a guess and medium in the range. I'm neutral short term being 2 weeks to a month on TSLY. I'm bearish medium term. Why? Because I'm sort of bearish on the stock markets, electric vehicles. I'm bullish long term because they've got a savant. I mean, Elon Musk, whether you love him, hate him, or whatever, is just brilliant. He's hardworking. He will keep TSLY in the forefront. But right now, China's dumping their EVs. Look at BYD. Look at, if you've traveled Asia like I have, and I supported Asia for a long time in my career when I was working. You know, TSLY is leading many areas of things, but there's just a period. This is not a good time for electrical vehicles, and it's been a great time for a while. So there's my outlook on that. Would that be the fund I want to jump into? No, right? So if you go down to my crash, which is the first bearish fund, so I'm neutral short term, matches my neutral there. I'm bullish medium term on crash, right? Because I'm bearish medium term. I'm bearish long term. I wouldn't go out and want to hold crash for a year. Now, let me tell you something else. So I'm saying 70, I'm jumping around, and then only because these two are paired. It's unique, right? I love the idea that they got a bull and they got a bear. I want to see them have a bear on QQQ. I think it's forthcoming. And some of those things where I can get income and I can be a bear for a while when I really think that the pullback is happening. We'll see. I mean, if we go up another 5 or 10% in June and then July is up, then I'll say, hey, I was a little early in my bearish bend. And we'll see what August and September bring. So that's what I got for TSLY, 57 cents, right? If you like crash, now, a bunch of people talked, and I want to educate you guys, right? All my subscribers know when I say, okay, this is education, what I'm about to talk about. So at 75 cents and 57 cents, people ask, and I thought the same thing. I listened to Jay talk about this on an interview. Hey, well, can I just buy TSLY and crash and get paid income in both, right? That sounds like a deal, and whichever way it goes, I'll switch over in that direction. Well, it doesn't always happen that way. It can go bullish for 2 months and then be bearish for 2 months, but in general, so Jay's response was brilliant. Being the optioneer, I made that word up, an expert in options, optioneer, but almost sounds like auctioneer. What he said, yes, in a neutral to slightly up or down environment, right, which is always good for a fund in general. If all you did was TSLY and you said, hey, it's going to have a 2% range up and down over the next 3 months, then you can own this fund, not get much NAV reduction, and get a payout, right? Now, problem with TSLY, as it's declining in its NAV, even though it may have a decent IV, the payout amount gets reduced because the underlying, right, it's just not that. Now, to counter that, the stock value goes down right on the NAV. But let me talk to this. So the only caveat to not owning both, okay, is if you have a 30% move in a month in one direction, then your loser is going to get hurt. Right? So if I own TSLY and I'm collecting dividend, and let's just say it has a 30% move down, it goes from, I don't even know where, 170s now. Let's say it goes down to, that would be 120 in a month. Okay, so that's super bearish. So this guy is going to do really well. Hopefully it didn't run past its puts. Remember, you do calls and you do an inverse on the call put scenario, right? You're buying puts instead of selling puts in TSLY. And I covered crash for a while. So I didn't continue. It's just a lot of work and it's different. I'll probably go back to covering it. So that's what I wanted to educate you on, and I promise I'll just fly through most of these except for the 3 or 4 that I cover. I'll give you some detail. All right, so that's that scenario. If you're neutral short term, you know that, you know, and some of my subscribers said, hey Bruce, I'm going to go out and buy 10 shares of each or 100 shares of each. C'est la vie, you know, I think it's great. Let's see, right? So I think 75 cents and 57 cents. I'm a little more accurate here, I think, but I don't know either because I stopped really doing all my detail work in the last 10 days or so. But I still have a lot of the stats, I just haven't. Okay, so ARK. ARK is really trending down. It's been a horrible fund for YieldMax. And mainly, Kathy, and you know, she's a visionary, but it isn't happening yet. Like, she'll say BTC's going to $1 million. And you know, BTC probably will. Bitcoin will. I mean, the meme coins and all that, I'm not sure. But why? Because it's like a commodity, but it's restricted. There's only so many BTCs. And it's kind of the king. So my view there is that BTC long term is super bullish. I'm neutral medium or neutral short term. I'm bullish medium term, and I'm super bullish long term, but not without massive volatility. I mean, I can see Bitcoin hopefully this year running to 95 to 104. Sometimes I say 93 to 104. But I also see it could go, when it starts to go back down, it'll go back and test its breakout 73, 74. So when you have those kind of swings, it's really volatile. But it also pays well. Okay, so Apple. Neutral short term, bearish medium term, and bullish longer term, because I think any pullback in our market doesn't last. But if you ask me, this decade, right, we're moving slowly from all the FOMO in the NASDAQ and AI and the Dow and just a bullish cyclical market. I think we turn to a neutral market in the big industrial averages, right? The NASDAQ and all that. Well, there's always money velocity. Money is always chasing something. So where's money going to go? Well, it's going to go into hard assets or commodities, right? Manufacturers of food, grains, lumber, you know, real things that people have to dig out of the ground or build or produce or extract, right? And it's less about AI and FOMO and you know, GME and some of these GameStop, some of these craziness that we've seen that are usually come into play when you're near a topping scenario. I mean, look at all of your CEOs. Now, some of them have to sell options, some of them have to sell stock just because, but you know, when these guys sell billions and billions of stock, right? Even Jeff Bezos, which I'm the most bullish on Amazon probably of the Mag 7. I like Microsoft too on its odds. But so just some of these things, we'll have to see. I'm not saying don't own these, but you want, so 35 cents for Apple, right? You look at this, 17 cents, 41, 38, its average is 42. So down a little bit on the average. Let's go to NVDY. Oh my gosh, right? Just FOMO to the max. You know, I love and understand what NVDY does, right? I was selling things to I can't even say the word. Anyway, the thing that the Apple founder started, Steve Jobs, Toy Story, couldn't get that word out. And all the things they did. Well, Disney bought them, right? Animation studio. All that stuff was using electronic storage that I was in that type of market, and it was fast. We were fast storage. We're referring to it as NAS, right? And the company I was at bought a lot of other companies, and that all merged into Dell Technologies now. But infrastructure. So NVIDIA and its CEO is brilliant. You know, he's just beat everybody to the punch. He had the consumer owned, although AMD pushed him really hard, right? And so NVDY is a force to reckon with and will be around. My only thought is in a topping market, they may just be up at that 1200-ish, you know, that's probably a top. And then they don't crash, but they move down with the markets. If the markets go down 20%, they'll go down. And what happens to your other chip suppliers? You know, AMD with its CEO, she's brilliant. She's really turned that around against Intel at the consumer level, at the data center level. She's going to be ample competition. They're both getting supplied by a lot of TSMC in Taiwan. Now that in China has its own scary thoughts. But I think you're going to see more competition. And what happens when you're the leader and you've got 5x earnings and all that? Slowly your margins come down. Not that you're not the king of the hill. I don't see anybody overtaking them. I just see competitive issues pulling their margins down some, right? They're going to remain so neutral short term, bearish midterm, because I'm a little bit bearish midterm on the market and bullish long term. Okay? So AMDY similar, but I'm actually on AMD bullish short term, neutral middle term, midterm, mid, whatever you want to call it, right? So look at these payouts. You guys can read them. I don't have to read it. So I'm seeing $1.88, and this one's, you know, part of the problem with the funds is when NVDY runs, these fund managers, they have a prospectus and they say we're going to sell calls at 5 to 15% and we're going to capture this yield so we can pay you out the IV, and you know, we all try and guess what the payout's going to be and understand the yields and take that into consideration. But how much did they make? How much of their weeklies did they capture? Yada, yada, yada. And the reality is it's a guesstimate. So I'm never going to be 100% on these guys. But I'll tell you what, I'm much closer on the ones I cover. And the proof will be in the pudding. I mean, I haven't seen anybody down here at YBIT calling for $2.50. Okay, could be $3. Do I think it'll be $3? No, but it could be. Okay, if you said that Apple could be $3, no, there's no way in hell it could be. Okay, so anyway, going through this, that's where I'm at. I'm going to speed up. 79 for AMD. Love AMD as a chip company, right? There's some other chips that Applied Materials that massively NVIDIA needs, right? They're not in here, but we're going to see some of that. By the way, guys, 30 new applications for new single stock funds. And 1 or 2 of them have an ETF underneath them, just like GDXY, right? It's actually based on GDX, which is the, you know, larger cap precious metals miners. It won't pay this month. It's brand new. But I want to show you after 9 days, well, I didn't count today's trading, but 9 days, the money it's built up. So I'm super bullish on that. I'm neutral short term, a week or two. I'm bullish midterm, and I'm really bullish long term. Not without volatility, right? You don't get a 50% up move without getting pullbacks, right? 50% of the 50% move up. So anyway, let's keep going. 79 cents, Facebook, 76 cents. I don't have an opinion here. You know, I think it falls into the other, you know, if we get a 20% pullback over 5 months in the NASDAQ, it's probably going to replicate that pretty close. Same thing with Google. They're just massive. These are giant companies. You know, they're never going to go bankrupt. They're not going to go down 50%, you know. Netflix, I got a couple opinions on these consumer. First off, you know, they're winning their weeklies. I think $1.01 would be a payout. You know, their average is 86, but they're trending well. What happens? We all know when we look at the stats, guys. Look, retail is hurting. Look at the consumer credit card debt. Look at delinquencies on credit cards. There's just a whole bunch of stats that are pulling down that probably by September or October are going to get reflected and say we've officially entered a recession. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm telling you what I see and what I read, and that comes from multiple decades of being in the stock market and trying to read charts and understand things. So where I see the downturn is, look at what Target is saying. Look at what medium to higher price clothing, what I call optional purchases, right? When you're buying consumer things and there's an option, there's not an option to eat. You gotta eat, right? Even McDonald's is saying, hey, we target 50,000 a year. Well, 50,000 a year, if you live in New York City, barely keeps the lights on, right? It might do fine in Podunk, Iowa, or Indiana or somewhere. And no offense to any of those states, right? Indiana has some great areas to live and probably one of the lowest cost of anywhere. I have to tell you about my racing career for a while in the IndyCar circuit. And so that's why I got to know Indiana and going to that event. Don't even get me started. But that was a whole lot of fun. So, and that was all because I was invested in a team. Don't ever invest in an IndyCar team, right? But I had a lot of fun, but didn't really get much of a return. But would do it over again. All right, so they're winning their weekly. So my point here on Netflix is that's a consumer item. What happens, what did we do during COVID? We used Zoom. You made that company Zoom up, right? What do you do with Netflix? You consume more, right? You're not going to the cinema and spending, I don't know, 15, 20 bucks to see a new movie come out. Maybe once in a while you go, I really want the sound effect and the huge cinema screen. But you're staying home, you're watching Netflix, right? You're ordering pizza, you're getting fast food, especially if you're on the low end of things, right? But even families. So I don't see Netflix being affected, right? They've got a low-cost consumer product that if it took a hit, it's going to be way less than everybody else. All right, CONY, $1.22. So by the way, 76 cents here for Facebook, 50 cents for GOOY, $1.01. So I'm saying CONY, $1.22. Well, I think I know a little bit about CONY, right? Been covering it. It's in my video about how I made $40,000 a month by having investments in just CONY and MSTY. Now, in all fairness to that, I took 70% of my CONY 2 weeks ago and moved it over into MSTY. Took the amount of dollars that I had CONY. Still gonna own CONY, still love CONY, but I saw the writing on the wall for this month, right? We took a huge hit here and have been coming back slowly, winning our weeklies here. This fund will be great. So don't go out if you own it and sell it right now. But I knew it wasn't gonna pay. Look at these payments. So I know the history real well. I've only been covering it ever since I bought it, in December. So I decided to really start my channel later, but I had all the stats, right? I didn't start my channel till late March. But so the idea is that it's not going to be $2.28. It could be anywhere from $1 to $1.22. So I'm going with $1.22. They don't have the money to pay out, right? They got a credit here, but they use some of that to get this up to $2.28. But here they've got a loss, right? So that's ugly, right? And they made 42 cents. So somebody could say, well, they're going to pay 42. Well, let me tell you a secret about CONY. And Jay disclosed it and gave it up in an interview. And I say Jay for those of you, there's a few people that don't. Jay Petroselli is the CEO of Zega Financial. So you have YieldMax, the fund, and you have two partners. You have Tidal that does all the administrative and the interaction with the SEC, keeps all the paperwork together. Then you have Jay and his team of people. He's about 20 people, maybe 30, maybe 20. I'm trying to, distinguish whether he said 15 or 30, so I'm using 20. So he's got a bunch of traders, and these, there's one trader on Ulti, if you know anything about how Ulti works in YieldMax. But he was saying that, I lost my train of thought. That's what happens when you just ramble. Okay, so on CONY, what Jay said was that, people knock these YieldMax. Find their return of capital, they're a scam, you're going to lose all your money. Well, let me tell you something that Jay said proudly, and I'll embellish and elaborate on it. Jay said, hey, because somebody said, oh yeah, TSLY's horrible and this is going to happen to Kathy Woods' OARK. And so Jay said, well, people don't talk about CONY. CONY's been in existence 9 months, right? I'm going to go back and show you. So here's CONY. So CONY's been around. Their average, actually, I think this is 190. So I got to check my math, I think, because I did it separately in my presentation. So let's say it's really 190. Now my average has been 210. Right? I've been collecting since January through, but I believe the entire thing, and I don't need to go back. I could have done a typo somewhere. I'm not going to take your time. I'm already going off on my tangents, but I think valuable tangents. Hopefully, give me a like if you like these. Okay, so what CONY is doing will be unprecedented. And now Misty could pass it up and some other new ones, but literally this will be their 9th month? Maybe that's what I did wrong. What happens if I change this to 9? Whoops. Nah, that's not, it's 190. So I'm gonna leave it in there and see. So what happens, you go here with CONY, and their first payment was October. So I know that equals 3 months, right? And 5 is 8. So 8's the right number. I probably just added something wrong and their totals are entered one of them. You can imagine there's a lot of data entry. Okay, so CONY, I think they're going to pay $1.22. I showed you some of the stats. I'm tuned into that. I think it's $1.20, $1 to $1.25. That just is my gut. I went with $1.22. So here's what Jay said, and I'm going to finish this and move on. So Jay said, look, we've got CONY here. All these funds, by the way, come out at 20. They may close at 2022 or close at 1990, but sort of like the IPO. They're IPOing at $20 on their inception date, right? And for these guys, it was back in September or October. Yeah, it would have been September because they paid in October. So where is CONY on here? 8/14, right, was their inception. Okay, so what matters here is that what they're paying, and Jay said they will be the first fund in YieldMax's history to reach their year mark, right? In August will be their 12th payment, and very likely they will return 100% of what the investor bought on opening day. So what he's really saying is they're going to return $100. They're going to return $20 in payments, right? I'm showing 1640, but I actually think that number is 1550. There's my problem. So it's about 1550, and this is a 190 average. But my point being, okay, so I use $15 and say 56 cents. So they need to average, okay, 150 a month for 3 months, including June, July, and August. That gives them 450. Okay, I'm just going to show you guys, right? So there's your $20. It'll happen. I guarantee you they'll make it happen, right? So they're probably watching 122 and saying, okay, well, we're going to have to pay more. But, you know, you're going to give a little benefit. You're not going to do something crazy to make it happen. But CONY's a good payer. All right. What's the significance of that? Well, it alters that view that they're only returning capital. And guess what? What do you think the stock's going to be trading at? What's the stock trading at right now? Well, let me tell you. So it closed from what I believe is 23 something. Okay, I haven't done my video on today's. Yeah, 23.27. So guys, I got news for you, right? You just got all your money back in 1 year in distributions. You paid $20. Let's say you paid $21. Okay, then you didn't quite get 100. But guess what? You got $3.27 right now, right? Which I can just look at that and tell you it's a little more than 15%. Right? If it's 20 even and this is 3 even, then it's exactly 15%. Just doing the math in my head. So there you go in terms of good performers, right? It dispels the BS about these don't perform. Yeah, I agree. CONY's one of the better performers. Why? Because it's built on Coinbase. And then you get the guys, listen, anybody who's a doubter of YieldMax that's watching that, these funds can work. What should be your caveat? Invest in one of these funds that you're bullish on the underlying, okay? So I just did a video, my most recent video other than this one when you're watching it, on how do you go out and safely invest, right? So all these single stock funds, just about, right? Some of them are so new they're not in it. You buy YieldMax, right? So YieldMax is paid 61 cents, right? And I think what's YieldMax trading at? 20 something, 20.21. It was up 10 cents today. Okay. So you buy that because you got this wide variety. But I would argue that's diversification. But the reality says if you know markets and study stocks, there's more of a propensity for some things to do better than others. But again, you're risking that, right? So I'd get Amazon, I'd get AMDY, I clearly would get CONY and MSTY because I think digital gold and BTC is going to really work. I'm also very bullish on GDXY. But I think in the short term, but now it's not going to pay this month, but I'm going to show you what it would pay. All right, so I got to keep moving. These are just too long. So CONY is a unique animal. MSTY is probably going to beat CONY's stats. We'll have to see how long this runs, right? Well, so far, I know this number to be wrong now. It should be around 1556, and I'll go figure out where I type something, okay, in 8 months. This number in 2 months, okay? And what am I predicting for my payout, right? Fairly accurately, I think. So let me show you, since I cover this every day and I watch what they do. So here's MSTY, folks. This isn't just blowing smoke. So they've collected 34 million on their synthetic and they've been losing on their weeklies. Why? Because when they often run by, which is known as capping, right? So in the underlying of YieldMax, I'm not going to stop and tell you how they work. Go to all my videos, watch any single one on MSTY or CONY or YBIT, and you'll see how I describe how YieldMax funds work and what weeklies are and what synthetics. So these guys lost $2.20. This is their payout history, right? This is a summary of everything they've done with all my daily work, right? So if I go here and I go into my May tab, I'm showing you everything they're doing in May, and I'm color coding what they did on a particular weeklies and what they're going to collect and what the new weeklies are at. And I'm in here telling you, hey, they're losing a little bit on their weekly after the Friday close, yada, yada, yada. I really cover this stuff at a deep. And if it's too much detail, just tune in at the end and, I'll go 15 minutes and then I'll tell you what the summary is and how it's impacting their weekly gain and thus their monthly gain as we get close. Okay, so on payouts. So I see them paying roughly half of this. They've got a standard to keep up They're the highest IV, probably, I would say accurately, over 100, the highest IV premium of any single stock fund. So they paid $4.12 because they made $8 here and $2 here, and they wanted, you know, brand new, they're never going to pay all the cash out. Most at half, right? And nobody, no fund had ever paid $3 and still hasn't paid $3 when MSTY paid $4.12. Well, here, look at this loss, right? And that's what happens when you soar, right? So they got hurt here, but they started winning their weeklies because they didn't run very far. Most of the time they dropped down. It hurt them here, but they got a lot of cash, so they got paid $2.50. So I'm thinking it could be as low as $2, but possibly up to $2.50. So that's why I went $2.42, folks. That's what you wanted to know, right? So let me just go back and cover a couple that I didn't, right? So, but, you know, I'm not as accurate. Well, some of them I am. So XOMO, ExxonMobil, very bullish hard assets in oil. Short term, 30 trading days, I see oil going back to 70, right? So sometimes that gets reflected in these big oil stocks and sometimes it doesn't. But I'm kind of calling for a lower payout. But we've seen 22, 27, 25, 33, 31, but oil's coming down. So I could see 29 or 30 cents, right? I'm neutral short term, I'm bullish medium and longer term. If a recession becomes more of a depression and we really have a deep recession, then oil consumption could go down. But supply and demand, these big oil companies have been legislated against, they've been beaten up, they've been yelled at their kids are ugly. You know, everybody hates oil. But the reality is we need it for a long time. And now you're seeing the comeuppance on the electric vehicles, right? Because guess what? Electric vehicle, you got to dig nasty, dirty dirt and break up, you know, good land and cause water issues and everything else to mine out all those minerals that the batteries need. It's just, you know, it's ravaging Earth. If you want to be a Greenpeacer and argue that big oil is ugly, right? Causes all these problems and carbon, guess what? So do electric cars. And the amount of oil that they need to do that, what do you think drives the exploration of all these minerals? It's energy. Where's that energy coming from? Diesel, primarily, right? For all excavation of minerals deep in the earth. So, you know, there's so many fallacies in that. Again, I'll probably lose a subscriber or two, but I really don't care. I'm going to tell you what I think. Okay, so JP Morgan. I'm neutral short term, bearish medium, and then and long term. Why? Because I see some more mini banking crisis. You know, these banks have been bailed out. I see problems, but at the same time, I can see a period where other things go down and the banks give you balance, which is back for the argument on YieldMax. If you're really conservative and want to dip your toe in, just buy some YieldMax, right? The problem is, though, probably even right now, BTC is sort of tied to the FOMO of the NASDAQ and the stock indices. I see that ultimately separating. Having deep knowledge of the commodity market space and mining and oil and other commodities, they too go down with liquidity if the market pulls back 20%. But then people sort it out and say, no, we need those things, right? We don't stop needing lumber, we don't stop needing food, we don't stop needing energy. We may not do the excessive, you know, in the summer driving seasons, if we had a big recession, people don't drive as much, people don't fly as much. But the reality is you're still staying at home, you're consuming energy. So that's what I got for you on there. I know you guys just want to hear this. I'm going to wrap it up. Okay, so PayPal. PayPal is a little bit like Netflix, only not as much. 54 cents, right? AMD, that's my favorite chip stock within the chip stocks to move up when others move down. But if that sector goes down, it goes down. I just don't think it goes down, right? So I'm neutral short term, bullish medium and longer term, because I think they can execute. I really, really like the CEO at AMD, and she's done a fabulous job in turning that company around over the last 7 years. PayPal. PayPal is a little bit like Netflix, but at the same time, some of the payment stuff's going to go down when people spend less money. But overall, they're a little bit recession-proof in the smaller. I think your Visas and your MasterCards are the ones that take a bigger hit. We'll see. All right. SQE, right? So Block, payment system. Again, I think they pay 69 cents. Right? You can read these. That's why I'm not calling them all out. I'll take my cursor away. So, MRNY, Moderna, as you know it, pharmaceutical, they can be a one-stock pony at times, you know. I'm mixed. Short-term bearish and medium, neutral short-term, bearish mid-term. Haven't made up my mind longer term. I want to see something in their pipeline. I like better Lilly. I like some of the other pharmaceuticals, but again, they're not on here. But remember what I said? 30 new funds, okay? So I don't have it in front of me, but I took notes. I'll give you an idea. There's some BTC miners. There's Mara Digital. There's a Chinese Alibaba. There's a lot. I apologize for not having it in front of me and not memorizing it. All right, let me get through these because you guys care about the payouts. So 94 cents, AIYY. They really had the crap kicked them out of them. I see them back up to 72 cents. They won some weeklies. You know, but again, I think the FOMO's peaked. It's just if you look at AIYY, it didn't line up, right, with the AI companies, AI3, with what the space was doing with NVIDIA, with their sales, right? These big giants, and again, I came from that industry. Your Amazons, your Azures, which is Microsoft, your Googles, even Oracle with its cloud services. These guys, Amazon being number one, these cloud services are massive. These data centers are just super, super massive. You know, one of my arguments in my GDXY is why silver as a industrial metal is because Amazon's announced, and or not Amazon, but Microsoft, and they're right up there with Amazon as a big cloud server. These massive data centers with all their AI stuff, they're trying to get solar involved because the energy needed, I mean, Duke Power in the Virginia region can't keep up with the demands of where there's a lot of big AI data centers. They're massive. And so they're trying to use solar, they're trying to use everything to augment the energy, right? Natural gas, coal even. I mean, they're trying to do everything they can. And with Amazon, or I keep saying that, with Microsoft moving that direction, I see Amazon and the other big guys following Google. So that's an argument for GDXY and my miners and a whole lot of other things. But let me get it. So we covered MSTY. So I see a decent payment, MSTY. Look at YBIT. I cover them. I don't think anybody understands what's going on there. Let me show you. I saw other people talking about a forecast for them. Hey, maybe I'm the one that's wrong, right? I've been telling my subscribers that I see 2+, right? I'm even saying 2 to 3. Now, a lot's going to depend. They've earned 21 cents. Now, they've had about 6 weeks, right? So I'm showing April and May, they're collecting money and then adding them together down here. Some of them are weighted averages, right? So you can't take $1.92 and $12.45. And so they're weighted across things because of the share counts. So right now, I track YBIT on a daily basis, right? And what is YBIT? YBIT is a fund that sits on top of BITO. What does BITO do? BITO is commodity futures on the CME for BTC, right? So this kind of falls into not 70% correlation with MSTY and with CONY, right? In that it's crypto. But it's very specific BTC, which I'm most bullish on, and it's using BITO. Why BITO? Because first off, there isn't really a stock that you can buy, right? Even BITO at ProShares is giant, right? They were doing BITO, now they have 2 times bull, 2 times bear. You know, for my people in here, I have a lot of hedging strategies that I'm going to be helping people with there. But net result, 21 cents is what they've collected on their weeklies, right? And then look at my May tab, right? I go through here, I tell you what all they're selling, what they're doing, what the weeklies are, whether they won, what the holdings, right? They're what we call synthetics, and you'll learn about that when you're into YieldMax, right? So this is what you really care about. So on the payment, I see 21 cents here. That's positive. That's money earned, even though it's showing a negative number. This is positive. So they could come right out and pay $4. Do I think they will? No. Could they? Yes. So I think, to me, it's a shoe-in for $2.50 with between $2.50 and $3 possible. They could do a first time ever 3 payment. Let's see. I saw other people, and I see people in groups saying, you know, $1, $1.25, maybe the most $1.50. They all love BITO. I own some BITO, and I owned it before YBIT came out. So I decided to cover this fund right away. So they're writing calls because ProShares has so many buyers and there's so much volume in the options. YieldMax will never cover a single stock that doesn't have massive liquidity. That's why most of their companies, they look for high IV, but they want massive liquidity, because they're writing options of thousands and tens of thousands and NVDYs and in the big funds, right? So they want this. So 7.96 to 21 cents, you know, added together is what's available. So I see $2 to $3, right? So I went with 250 plus. If you go look right on my sheet. One final, okay, crash. I talked about it before. I think 75 cents is probably reasonable. I was tracking it for half the month, and then I said it's just, right now it's too much work to do all the detail. The other one, let me just show, this is not going to pay in June, right? It's got 9 trading days, and with Monday, June 3rd is its 10th trading day. I see less than 1% out of 100% that they would bother to pay. But let me show you real quick. If you guys are already gone, that's fine. But those of you that are here, some of you bought it already. I own, right? So they've collected in their 9 days, right? They didn't collect anything. You know, they roll once a week on their weeklies. And then sometimes during the week, if more people buy into the fund, they still have only 225,000 shares. You know, they opened at 150. So not a lot of people. But again, GDX and the precious metals miners are one of the most unloved and undervalued sectors altogether. So what does that spell for me? That spells for me the cycle has started. Because the metals, look at gold, reach all-time highs, pull back a little. Silver will go to all-time highs this year. And in subsequent years, it will really move. We've had 3 straight years of massive deficits in the consumption of silver in industry, in biotech, you know, in medical, and computer and technology, solar panels, weapons, munitions, right? You look at the Ukraine war, look at Israel and Gaza, these tomahawks and a lot of this stuff consume a hell of a lot of silver. And you know, when you dig it out of the ground, the production is dwindling and the deficits are getting bigger. So there's no place else to go but up in the underlying price. I'm not saying in a day, right? So I see the handwriting on the wall. So what do I think GDX would pay if it paid today? Well, let me show you the stats. They've earned 40 cents on their short call and 83 cents in 9 days. Even though they've traded today, that doesn't impact this. Okay? So, and the IV is low. It's in the 30s. I think what will happen when it runs, this is going to pay very well. But this could be a dollar payer. This thing, what's it trading at? Is it still in the 19s? No, I think it moved up today. Of course, I mix it up. 1917, right? This is a new fund. It only has 10 trading days. And again, you should get a good payout, right, in their first payout, but we'll see. I mean, they still got to roll their behind on their synthetic. But I'm very bullish over the course of 3 months, 6 months, a year, you know, but I'll tell you individually when these things are due for pullbacks and we can hedge and do some other things so you don't lose in your NAV. You do have to direct cost average, right? I mean, anybody that's not DCAing into these funds, don't decide, oh yeah, I want a big payout and I'm going to go into CONY and I'm just going to buy 1,000 shares. Buy 300. Wait a few days, buy another 300. Wait a week or two, buy another 200. You know, use common sense on these things. Because look at CONY, it's been $17 and it's been $30. It's at 23. So try and see where you are. MSTY opened at 20, ran to 45, and is trading at 34 today, I think. It might still be 33. 34. Okay, guys, sorry to keep you in run forever, but that's what I got for you. Bruce out. Again, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. It's for fun and entertainment. Hope you are entertained. Bye.